Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about The Last of Us, Season 1, Episode 1, When You're Lost in the Darkness. So I've been wanting to watch this show for a very long time. Why? Because Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey is in it. Because I have actually never heard of this. I didn't even know for a fact that it was based off a video game. I didn't find that out until like a couple of weeks ago. And I had no idea it's even about zombies. That's like insane. And so, like, yeah. And even though there's way too much zombie content out right now and people are getting oversaturated with it, I don't mind it. Hey, I'll take in this new interpretation. Why not? You know what I'm saying? And so, like, I'm a huge fan of Pedro Pascal because of The Mandalorian. That dude's voice is like awesome, even though you never get to see his face. And sometimes I forget what he looks like. It's funny. He looks like Jeremy Renner, but he sounds like Nathan Fillion. And as for Bella Ramsey, well, I've been a fan of hers since The Worst Witch. And like, I never saw her in Game of Thrones. I just didn't make it that far. And so, like, yeah, I've been a fan of hers for like a really long time. And then I remember with The Worst Witch, she left in the last season because she said she was like mentally stressed out and mental illness and all this other. I'm like, oh crap, dude, like what happened? Because she was so young back then. Because she's only 19 now, but The Worst Witch came out in 2017, I think. And so, like, whatchamacallem? So it's like, I was like, man, I can't believe she gave up acting like so young. But then she popped up in like his Dark Material on HBO Max in the second season. And so I'm like, oh, I guess she's not done with acting. So what happened on the set of The Worst Witch, I wonder? And so like now she's been acting full on ever since then with some movie called Birdie and this and that. And so I'm glad to see her back. And in this, she plays an American girl. Now she's British. And like, so she pulls off a really good, like, American accent, which she had to learn for this show. And, with this, like I said before, I never knew this was about zombies. And so this zombie adventure is about like a fungus. And so the fungus affects people with the spores, and then people get infected, and then they get bit and do the zombie apocalypse type thing. And I like how early on in the very, very first like couple of seconds, there's like this professor, doctor, and he's talking about like funguses and this and that, and other things, and how they're hard to get rid of, and some of them you just can't even get rid of and stuff, like molds and stuff like that, and how they're useful and how they're bad and stuff. And I remember there's this one movie I saw that I really like called Sugar and Spice, and with that movie, like, oh, my tablet's acting weird, so I can't pull up any information. So I have to do this by memory. So anyway, with Sugar and Spice, not that I know that from like memorization. I got that on DVD. But like towards the end, the one girl's all like getting her foot clean, and she's like, "It's a fungus. There's nothing I can do about it." I'm like, "Nothing you can do about it? What, you can't get rid of it or something?" Because I don't know nothing about funguses and stuff, or fungi and what all the other mess. And so I like how they already tell you that, hey, this zombie virus is caused by a fungus. Unlike The Walking Dead, where we still don't know what the world caused the outbreak. Now, do I think this premiere episode is better than the Walking Dead premiere episode in season 1? No. At least in The Walking Dead, you had more zombies and stuff. Whereas this one, zombies are barely present. And that really pisses me off because, I want to see zombies in this thing. You know what I'm saying? But this is only the first episode. And so, do I think it's better than Fear the Walking Dead premiere? For the most part, somewhat, yeah. It's a lot more entertaining and better acted than Fear the Walking Dead premiere. Now, one thing that really bugs me is that when it comes to these zombie apocalyptic shows, I want to see the outbreak do the like initial start and like, how it affected the world. Something The Walking Dead never did, and something the Fear the Walking Dead season 1 was supposed to do, but I feel like they just didn't do it that well. I'm not a huge fan of Fear the Walking Dead. And so, like, with this, they kind of do that same thing. Like, it starts off very early, and everything's peaceful and normal. Then the outbreak happens, and then it leapfrogs 20 years after that. I'm all like, dude, let me see the zombie apocalypse. Like, let me see it happen. Like, 'cause that stuff that was in the car chase scene was really good and really interesting. And so they just quickly cut from that to 20 years later. Now, with this being based off a video game, like I said for the millionth time, I didn't even know that, so I've never played it. And but what I've been hearing from a lot of hardcore gamers that love this movie, it's pretty accurate and everything, which is very shocking because most adaptations aren't this accurate. So I still haven't spoiled myself. I haven't went on Wikipedia. I don't know nothing about these characters. I don't want to know until the season is over with because I don't want to spoil myself like I did with The Walking Dead by mistake when I started researching it when I first started watching it. And so, like, there's only 2 games out, so this is based off the first game. Normally with a TV show or movie adaptation, they wait until like 100 games later till they adapt it. This must be a very good one and stuff. Or they just needed something to compete with, like, The Walking Dead going off the air and stuff like that. And so I went to IGN YouTube page and they did like a comparison of the game and the video. And yeah, it's pretty much spot on with a few tweaks here and there. Now I remember before this even came out, like a month ago, people was complaining that, oh, these characters in the show don't look nothing like the characters in the video game. Do you really expect that? I mean, come on now, people. Like, you can't always have somebody looking identical to what the video game looks like. You need people who can actually act. And of course, when it comes to Sarah, people was getting pissy because they race bent her to half black and everything, which, oh no, I thought race isn't supposed to be a factor. It's supposed to be the acting ability. So why y'all complaining about that? Lord Jesus have mercy. Anyway, so like a tip, like so it starts off with like, pretty mundane day. We get to see Sarah, we get to see her father Joel, we get to see them interact with the brother and stuff like that. And she's going to get his watch fixed and stuff. And so something's going on. Like the lady who works in like, the repair shop, she's telling the guy, you can't fix the watch, you gotta hurry up and go and get home and be safe. And it's like, well, what the world's going on? Oh, it must be the zombie apocalypse, right? And so she sends the girl off on her way and don't even tell her that, hey, there's some people acting kind of freaky outside. And so she goes home, she sleeps, she wakes up just like the video game. She's wearing the same shirt as like the video game, so that's cool. And so she lets the dog in the house. The dog is like freaked out, scared. She tries to return the dog back to the neighbor. And the neighbor, the old lady, is tripping. She is zombified and everything. In comes the dad who rescues her, and the uncle like shoots her and stuff. No, the uncle doesn't. He's about to, but the dad takes a wrench and knocks her clear out. Now, one thing that is very apparent is that these zombies are not your traditional slow walking zombies. They run super fast and they can get you. So that makes it even more scarier than them walking very slow and hundreds of them like come at you and stuff. Now, the rules of the zombies aren't really defined that well, and that kind of bugs me. Some aspects of this show, they kind of expect you to know the game. Me, as an outsider, I know nothing about the game, so it would be nice if you explain a couple of things, Like, there's a chart very quickly with this person at the hospital, and they tell you the rules of when you get bit, how long you have. But the chart, it's like a blinky and miss it kind of thing. And so you're not really sure what you're even looking at. And so like, that kind of sucks. So it'd be kind of nice to know the different, like how much time you got when you get bit in certain areas of the body, because it's completely different. And so, like, another thing is, how do you kill these zombies? Can you just kill them straight on in the chest, or do you have to like take the brain out? Normally, in zombie type media, you have to take the brain out, and so he hits her in the head with a wrench, and so she goes down and she dies. So I'm assuming it's like that, but for the most part, I really don't know. And so then we get the cool stuff where they're in the car and they're trying to get out of there. This dude Joel is kind of like, you know what? Screw going inside, being safe, or we're getting out of here. And it's funny because he tells his neighbors, yo, go in the house and be safe and don't leave. But he ain't following his own advice. He's getting out of Dodge. And so like him and his brother and his daughter, they hightail it. And it's very similar to like the game. There's like tons of people running out of places. There are zombies running, biting people and everything. And then all of a sudden the car gets flipped over. Just like in the game from that comparison I saw on IGN. And so then Sarah's ankle is like, hurt. And so he's carrying her and then he gets separated from his brother. And then all of a sudden there's a military soldier. And first he's being calm until he gets some orders. And then his orders is to no matter what, just shoot. Can't take that risk of her being hurt because he thinks she's probably bit. So he fires at them. And then the brother comes in and kills the military officer, and then it turns out Sarah is wounded so badly that she dies, just like in the video game. And I'm like, holy crap, dude! Like, you didn't even give me a chance to get to know her. She's already dead. And so, one thing I've always found weird about is zombie apocalypse and vampire apocalypse is why is it always the first thing for the military and the police force to go crazy and just start killing everybody? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's always like that. Like, they're never calm and rational and stuff. And so it's just like that here. And so like that's cool that it's nearly scene by scene from like that of the video games. I know a lot of hardcore gamers are gonna be happy about that. But it does suck because it's kind of like, Sarah's this like really nice girl and everything, and already she's like taking out of like, the franchise and everything. And sometimes I do wonder, is this a good thing or a bad thing to adapt straight from the source material, or is it better sometimes just to like do your own thing? Fans can't really tell you the truth because people are all over the place. Some people like it to be completely accurate. Some people like an adaptation. Some people like a blend of both. And so that's what they did in The Walking Dead. In the earlier days when the show was really good, it was just an adaptation. But then halfway towards the middle, towards the end, they started taking source material and then the show started to suck. Shane was one of the coolest characters on the show, and they let him live a lot longer than what he did in the comic book. So sometimes adapting and doing your own thing could be a bit better. Now, the actress who plays Sarah, she actually played the video game many years ago, but she said she wanted to do her own spin interpretation on Sarah. I don't know how I feel about that. Because I'm like if I was to ever be asked to play Wolverine or something like that, or Batman, I'm gonna act like Wolverine or Batman from the mediums I see in cartoons and stuff. I ain't just gonna do my own thing. And so like actually a lot of people on set was instructed not to play the video game. And so Bella Ramsey's character, Ellie, she was told not to play the video game as well. I think she said she saw some clips on YouTube, but that's about it. Because it's kind of like, this is that whole Bryan Singer crap from the X-Men. He told the people, look, don't watch the cartoon and don't read the comics. And we saw how the X-Men, like Fox era was. Like, a lot of people didn't act the way they were supposed to act. And that really bugs me. Like, some people just want to see the mannerisms and personality from that of either a cartoon, a video game, older show, or like a comic or something like that. Now, the dude who made the video game, he's very, very heavily influenced in that of the show. So much that a lot of people who do the motion screen cap stuff for the video game are playing either the same characters in the show or completely different characters. And so like after this whole like Sarah dying thing, it leapfrogs 20 years later. I'm like, no, man, I want to see more of the outbreak and people running around and scream. You never get to see that fun stuff in TV show. Sometimes it happens in the movies, but rarely does it ever happen in the TV shows, and that's a huge bummer. So for the most part, this is very much a drama-filled show. So once they got 20 years later, I started to get a little bored because it's your post-apocalyptic stuff. Everything's in ruins. Now the set pieces are great. You can't even really tell this is Canada, and there's a lot of scenes that look like from that of the video game. But also I'm kind of confused because there aren't no zombies now once you go 20 years later in this first episode only. And so I'm like, man, I want to see zombies, and I didn't get to see that many zombies. Also, I don't really know what the zombies are truly supposed to look like, because when I saw the trailer, I saw this weird monster looking thing will look like its brains on the outside of its head for eyes, similar to that of a licker from Resident Evil. And so I'm like, okay, maybe the zombies look like that. But then when we go to the first couple of minutes of the zombie outbreak in the first episode, they're normal looking humans, but with just gaze looks in their eyes and them acting like weird and stuff. So what exactly do the zombies supposed to look like? And so we get Joel, 20 years later, gray hair. It's weird in these post-apocalyptic shows. The government's always the first thing to fall, and then everybody in their own city takes up arms and control the city. And it's always weird how it's always like that. Civilization is never the way it used to be. And I get that for it makes it more interesting, but when you see it so much on television and movies, it's oversaturated. And so it's kind of like back in the old days, and typical post-apocalyptic government rule city. And so there's a huge curfew. You ain't supposed to be out at a certain time. If you break the rules, you are executed the next day and everything. And they have these devices that can test if you're infected or not. Green's the good okay, and red is not. And they don't have a problem putting people down. And so Joel's a smuggler, and he's pretty close with this one cop that he smuggles certain stuff in. He's looking for certain parts to make for a radio to contact his brother because they have been separated. And so he has aligned himself with this one lady who seems to be his love interest because she laid up next to him in the bed and stuff like that. And her name is Tess. And Tess is trying to get a car battery from these other dudes, and things don't really go the way that they have to go. And so the police, they enforce the streets very heavily. And so Joel just wants to be with Tommy and everything. And so there's this group of revolutionary terrorist type people named the Fireflies. And with them, we get Marlene, and she is the same lady who does the screen capture motion thing in the video game. And so that's kind of cool. You never see that in live action. And so she's a hard nose and everything, and she has captured this girl named Ellie. Ellie is just pissy. She doesn't want to be chained to a wall. She wants to go home. She wants a book bag back, and she just wants to leave. But Marlene tells her, I saved you and everything. And she tells her, you can't tell people about you, because if you do, you probably, well, it's just what she does off screen, she tells her. And then it turns out Ellie is actually immune, just like she is in the video game. So Maureen fears that if certain people know, they might just kill her, because think about it. When you're in a post-apocalyptic world and all of a sudden you're the person in charge, you don't want to go back to the old ways because you will lose that power. And so at some point in time, Tess and Joel, they have to get their parts back from this dude who they tried to get them from, who tried to cheat them and everything. And so when they go into the building, it turns out that the Fireflies have been hit hard. It would have been nice to see this ambush and everything, but no, for whatever reason, we don't get to see that either. I want to see some action, man. I'm tired of all this drama stuff. And so Ellie, she's been freed, and her and Joel kind of get into it because she wants her pocket knife and he won't give it to her. And Ellie's a very rude little girl and everything. And I just love Bella Ramsey so much when she plays this character. And so, like, because Marlene's been hit, they have to take, Ellie out, like, the safe zone and everything, and get her to a certain location. And so Joel doesn't like Marlene because he's all like, you turned my brother against me and stuff like that. And so she's like, look, I need you to take Ellie, blah, blah, blah. So of course they don't want to do it, but they do it anyways. Now her right hand lady wants to be the one to do it, but Marlene will not allow her for some reason. And so this is when Ellie and Joel start to bond, but they can't get along with each other. She realizes that, he's trying to like build a radio to contact somebody and break a code and all this other stuff. And so that night when they try to smuggle her out, they get into a bit of a confrontation with a police officer who's whizzing. And so basically, Ellie has never been outside, like, certain areas of the wall, and she's never seen, like, the night in a certain angle. So she's really enjoying that part. But there's a problem. That cop is the same cop that, is tight with that of Joel, but he ain't playing around. He doesn't want him smuggling crap out, especially when he sees it. So he makes them all get to their knees and he tests them. Ellie, being very paranoid, whips out her knife and stabs him just like that of the video game. And then it's Joel who's having PTSD of when that soldier shot Sarah. So he whoops on that cop dude and kills him with his bare hands as opposed to the video game and just shoots him. Ellie can see this and see that Joel is a very troubled, very angry man. But we understand his reasons. But then now there's a problem. The little indicator thing is flashing red and Tess wants to take out Ellie. And Ellie's like, no, man, this is like, either 3 days or 3 weeks. So I think she said 3 weeks and everything. In the game it's 3 days. But she said like it's been like 3 weeks and I haven't turned, but I got bit. And so Tess kind of just wants to take her out, but they don't. And then they take off and they flee. And so, like, this is very interesting, I will say. But it is kind of lackluster in a certain way because I want to see more action and I want to see more zombies. I just don't want to see a bunch of people standing around talking and pointing guns at each other because so far that's what it's been. But I am very interested in this. But sadly, my HBO Max will run out by the end of February. So I'll probably only get to see 6 episodes out of the 9. And so we get to see this really cool cocoon, like fungus type like person stuck to a wall. And the only problem with that, since it's a fungus and it has spores, you're supposed to wear like masks, and they don't do that. Now in the video game they wear gas masks, and I guess they didn't want to do it because they want the actors to show their faces, and you know how Pedro Pascal is about showing his face. He wants it shown because that's one problem with the whole Mandalorian thing. But if Fear the Walking Dead can nuke the entire city and like wear gas masks half of the time in the show, they can do it here too. At least make it realistic, you know what I'm saying? Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.